So I added another enlarger to my darkroom. This is the Bessler 23C, and this is version 2. This is a great enlarger for anybody just starting out or someone that wants to maybe build their first darkroom and get into printing. And on top of that, it would be a great enlarger for pretty much anybody that wants to make amazing prints. It's a really good printmaker. And one of the reasons that I feel this way is because there was just so many of these available. They use them in schools and universities throughout the years as educational, like educational darkrooms. So you can just find a ton of these still. And piggybacking on that, you can find like negative carriers, lens boards, accessories for these enlargers relatively easy, whereas other enlargers can be kind of difficult to find parts and different things for, and when you do find parts and things for them, they can be expensive. Not to say that they aren't worth it, but if you are just starting out, this might be a really good option for you. So this enlarger will print pretty much all formats up to about 6x9. So, and I've owned a few of these over the years. The first one I had was actually the version 3, and it was the dichroic head, the black and white head model. This one is a condenser enlarger, and I specifically wanted this one for some of my 35mm and medium format negatives. So the one thing with this enlarger, like I said, it goes up to about 6x9 negatives. So if you want to get into 4x5 large format and bigger, this enlarger is not going to work for you. The condenser head will give you more contrast out of your negatives, and I have some that are kind of flat and hard to print the way I like them on this enlarger. So I'm thinking that that's going to give me a little bit of an advantage. So because there's so many of these out there, I would definitely try and find one that's in good condition like this one. If you can find a version 3 for a really good price, I would definitely pull the trigger on that as well. The version 3, the 23C version 3 has a little better options for aligning it, but this is basically the exact same unit, and all the accessories and everything are cross-compatible as far as I know. So you can pick these up used for, I've seen them anywhere from $50, people giving them away. Definitely check Craigslist. You can find them on eBay. I got this one for a couple $100 because it is in such good shape. But again, to me, that's a steal. They're selling the 23C version 3 right now for new for like $2,000. So I would definitely look into a used one, especially if you're just starting out. Now, the first thing I would do before I even cleaned this enlarger, because it's the version 2, and like I said, it has a few less options for aligning it, I would set it up on a level surface, make sure that the baseboard is level, and then go through quickly with a like just a simple spirit or speed level or bubble level of some kind, and check that you can get all of these fairly quickly, reasonably parallel. You want your negative stage, your lens stage, and the baseboard all to be level front to back and side to side. If something's really off, and I'm going to go over like exactly how to do that in a second, so just kind of do a quick go over, and if something's really off, bent or tweaked, this particular enlarger can be a little bit more difficult to get back in alignment. So that would be the first thing I would do. Just make sure that nothing's like really tweaked or bent, if you get it shipped, or if it's just been abused over the years. So check that first, then get on to cleaning your enlarger. The one thing is these are old. This, I'm not really sure how old it is, but they're old. And most of them have probably sat in someone's garage or basement for decades. It really doesn't matter the condition. You're gonna wanna dust it and clean it, especially, this has got a little filter drawer so inside above the condenser. I wanna go through and just detail the whole enlarger. Now, I would not recommend doing that if you have a space set up for your darkroom. If you have a darkroom, I wouldn't clean it in there because you don't want dust. You don't want to kick up dust everywhere in the darkroom. So what I did was I took this outside. Now to clean the enlarger, I would recommend just like a good glass cleaner. I just used a spray bottle of vinegar and some lint-free cloths, and then I used some brushes made for car detailing to get in all the nooks and crannies and brush them out, and then a vacuum cleaner. And then if you do have to take the condensers like out and apart, don't touch them with your bare hands. Use some nitrile gloves or some gloves to keep from getting your fingerprints all over the condensers. So this enlarger is pretty easy to take apart and clean. all you do to pull the condenser out, or the condensers in the bellows out, is pop these little springs off on the side here and then take a screwdriver and unscrew these, which leads to me, I guess you will need a few tools. These are kind of a bigger flathead bolt, so I just get a good set of screwdrivers, a bigger flathead, a smaller flathead, and maybe just a crescent wrench. I don't think there's too much else you need. So basically you pull these two screws out and don't lose them. Then you just, like I said, there's two springs, and instead of unscrewing, you don't have to unscrew the screws because the bottom part of this spring are on these little knobs, and you can just kind of pop them off. Well, supposedly you can pop them off the knob. Then if you lift the filter drawer here up, this whole thing will just slide straight out. And just be careful because there are two glass condensers. And that's going to allow you to really get in here and detail and clean everything. You can pull the lamp housing off. Kind of went through with a detail brush and vacuumed everything out, like I said, outside of my darkroom. Then once you get everything all cleaned, you're gonna put this, put the condensers back in, but you're gonna want to get this stuff as cleaned out as well as you can within reasonable. But this stuff is old, like I said. So now you're gonna put this back in, put it back together. So to get everything level, you're gonna wanna make sure you have a countertop that is nice and level. So first level that. Now I installed these cabinets and of course it was off. So before I put this in here, I had to go and pull the countertop, shim it underneath, and because the cabinet's bolted to the wall, I didn't unbolt the cabinet, and re-leveled the countertop so that is level. Then you're gonna bring it in and set the enlarger down on it. At that point, your baseboard should be level. Now, if you can't level the countertop or the work surface perfectly, one thing you can do is if you take sticky notes, like the little sticky notepads, and you can take different thicknesses of these and tuck them underneath on both sides on the feet. And whatever side needs to come up or down or front to back. So that is an option. I've done that in the past. So if you get a couple pads of sticky notes, you can kind of go through and shim the corners front to back or side to side to get that perfectly level. So like I said, you want to get your baseboard, your lens plane, and your film plane all parallel, front to back and side to side. And what that's going to do is when you're projecting the image, it will allow you to have the whole from corner to corner sharp. If anything's out of whack, part of your image will be in focus and part of it will be out of focus because the plane of focus will be shifted. So once you have your baseboard level side to side and front to back, then you want to match the negative stage and the lens stage. So to get this lens stage level, there's a little bolt back here. There's a lock nut and then a bolt, and you turn that until it puts this out at the right angle, until it's level front to back. Now to level the negative stage from side to side, what I do, and what I did with my old one too, you can see that's perfectly level. And what I did was I actually shimmed underneath here where the Enlarger carrier, or where the Enlarger chassis bolts to the baseboard. I loosened these screws up, put shims in until it leveled, and I tightened them back down. And I will break these off and clean that. I put one in the front and I put two in the back, and then I tightened it down, and that shifted everything this way. And even when it goes up and down, everything stays level. Then when it comes to the negative plane, there is a little adjustment here for side to side, and I put the lens in the lens board and go right there. So that's perfectly level, and that is perfectly level. But you can see there's a little screw here. See, if I loosen that up, it will allow me to adjust this from side to side. To adjust this front to back, what I did on this one was there was a little metal shim behind it that looks like a washer, only a thin washer, and I had to kick it back just a little bit. I just switched the washer and the shim around, and that made it level out like perfectly. So you can either add more shims behind this one or take the shims out, and vice versa, and that's going to allow you to adjust it front to back. You can do this all with a little speed level. What I like to do, however, is use a laser tool. Now this is a laser tool I made a long time ago. And the idea is you want the laser to go straight up and down. So this has to be straight up and down, and when you put a piece of glass in there, it's going to reflect straight back down. Now, you can buy, VersaLab makes a laser alignment tool. I think this is the best way to go because it's the most, in my mind, like looking at a bubble level, there's always going to be a little variability, even though you can get it dialed in really, really well that way. There's no problem doing it that way. But I like to see that laser shoot right back down on this target, and then I know that everything is aligned. The only downside to this is it does take a little bit of time to make. It wasn't really expensive. I've had this for quite a while now. I want to say I only spent $30 on it. That could be quite a bit more today. I don't know. But if you do want to make your own, it's not that difficult, but you will need like a drill press. Will make your life a lot easier because you're going to drill 3 holes for screws on the bottom, and then you need a tap and die set to tap those. And then you drill a hole up through and then a smaller hole on the top, and you stick this laser, just a red laser light through, and you get it in there as straight as you can. And then with these screws, what that allows you to do is, because you have to make sure the laser is coming straight up, straight out of here. It can't be at any type of an angle because it needs to reflect back down. But what you do to make sure that that's straight is that's why the 3 screws are there. So what you'll do is take this, and you got to find a 90-degree corner like that, for example. And that's why you need a round piece as well. You'll see why in a second. So what I'll do is turn this on, and where that is, I'm going to make a little pencil mark on the paper. And then I'll turn this, and if it moves off that pencil mark, I know I have to adjust it. I know that means it's not going straight up and down. And that's what the 3 screws are for. So you just adjust the 3 screws until you can adjust it and it stays perfectly on your mark. And then you know that it's perfectly perpendicular, or coming out straight, not at an angle or anything. That way when it shoots up, it's going to reflect right back down. So that in a nutshell is how you make this. And again, way beyond monochrome, so much good stuff in that book. That's where I actually got that design out of. Okay, so with a laser align tool then, essentially what you do is to get yourself a piece of glass. In this case, I'm just using this glass negative carrier. But you want to get a piece of glass, put it in the negative stage, and make sure it's resting flat on the negative stage. You're going to pull, if there is a lens and a lens board, you're going to pull the lens and the lens board out. And then you're going to turn the laser on and shine it up into there, directly in the middle. Basically what you're trying to do is make that shoot straight up and straight back in. If I can't see that single spot, this is perfectly flat with this. So that's for that stage. Then to the negative stage. So now we'll put the lens board in with the lens. So I would just cut a piece of glass, probably a little bit smaller than this, but I found this one real quick. I just hold it on the lens nice and flat and turn it on. Yeah, and there we go. I can't see the mark anymore. Perfect. So that is good to go. So that is how you're going to level this, this, and this. Then the other thing you're going to want to get if you want to print variable contrast is a set of multi-grade filters. Now, I thought for sure that these 6x6 ones would fit in here. They don't. I had to trim them down. So I had to trim maybe like 1/4 to 1/2 inch off each side, which for me is not a big deal. So I trim that down, and now I can, so if I want to print with the 5, or if I want to split gray with 0, 0, and 5, I just slide that in there. And now I have my color filter above everything else. Get yourself some filters. Then the only other thing you're really going to need, well, besides a grain finder, I would recommend splurging as much as you can to get yourself a really good, sharp quality lens. The lenses that come with these enlargers are not, you're not going to want to print with, or you can print with them, but it's not, they're not going to give you the results that, like this is a rod and stock APO Rodigon. Like this is a really good lens, and it's going to give you really, really sharp, crisp prints with great contrast. You also need a timer. Well, again, I guess you don't need a timer. You could literally turn this on, use a metronome. You can turn the bulb on, cover this, use a metronome, and time it out and do it that way. I do like having a timer. This is actually the same timer I used back in the day with the other 23C that I had. That's a Graylab 450. This one's cool because it's got the metronome built in. I have a lot of people ask me what timer I use over there because it has a metronome. This one has the metronome, and then it also has a foot switch. So that is, you're gonna want to get yourself a good easel. But again, like that, you should be set to print. Then the last thing I would do is get yourself a spare one of these, a spare bulb. They're cheap. You don't want to be in the middle of printing and have your have your chemicals mixed up. You working on your favorite print, looking good, and the bulb goes out, and then you gotta wait 2 weeks to finish your print, or maybe you gotta run to the store. I don't know, but best to have one on hand. So far I've made one print with it, and I love it. It's super fun. It's great. It's great. I love this Enlarger. Till next time, one of these. Bulb. Get yourself a spare bulb. They're cheap. Ah!